area of a composite figure, including real-world problems. The signal words you need to know for area are inside, paint, square units, tile, carpet, face, surface, or cover. If you have shapes that are adjacent to each other, that they are touching each other on the edges, then you add those areas. So if you look here in this example, we have a semicircle, we have a rectangle, and we have a triangle. So the formula for the area of that semicircle is half the area of a circle, which is right here. Okay, that is 1/2 pi r squared. Because they're adjacent, we're going to add the area of the rectangle, which is LW. And then we're going to add the area of a triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. So then we have to go through and figure out what variables the calculator needs to know. So they need to know a radius, they need to know a length, a width, a base, and a height. So let's take our time and go through this. The radius, if we look at that semicircle, the diameter is 5. So to make it a radius, we have to divide it by 2, which means the radius is 2.5. Then the length of the rectangle is 11, and the width of the rectangle is also 5. Then we're going to look at the base of that triangle, which is 5, and the height of that triangle is 4. And when you put that all into Desmos, it gives you a combined area of 74.8 millimeters squared. Okay, so let's see if we have some examples to go through. If shapes are stacked, you subtract the areas. So again, if they're adjacent, you add next to each other, but if they're on top of each other, you subtract. Always look at the larger figure first and figure out what that is, which is a rectangle. And then you have a smaller figure, which is also a rectangle. And because they're stacked, you're going to subtract. Now, when you have shapes that have the same variables, like two rectangles, you cannot do it all on one line in Desmos like we did with the one previous. So the area of a rectangle is LW. Let's do the big one first. L is 9, W is 7. That gives us an area of 63. So at that point, you would have to write it down or put it on another line in Desmos to keep it with you. Then we're going to change the L and the W for the smaller rectangle, which is 7 and 5, which gives you an area of 35. So 63 minus 35 gives you the area of that shaded region, which is 28 feet squared. Now we're going to look at this problem and see if we can figure it out. It says the YMCA must cover its outdoor swimming pool with a vinyl tarp. Notice the word cover. That's going to mean area. How much vinyl is needed to make the tarp? Round your answer to the nearest meter. Well, first of all, let's look at this picture. I see a semicircle, a rectangle, and another semicircle. Great thing about that is if you have two semicircles, you have one whole circle. And the formula for the area of a circle, make sure to look it up, is pi r squared. Now, these shapes are adjacent. They are next to each other. So we're going to add the area of this rectangle, which is LW. Now, again, we have to tell the calculator what it needs to be able to calculate this. The calculator does not know our radius, it does not know our length, and it does not know our width. So let's look at our diagram. From the top to the bottom is 30 meters. That is the diameter of that circle. So to make it a radius, we have to take the diameter and divide it by 2, which gives us a radius of 15. The length of this rectangle is 60, and the width is that end of the rectangle, which is 30. And when you put that all into your calculator, you get 2,507 meters squared. And I rounded it to the nearest meter. So there's your answer right there. Okay, we have a lot more going on in this picture, but these are stacked. So we're going to have to do some subtracting. I'm going to actually use Desmos as my scratch paper, so let's keep an eye on that. It says a community park is shown below. The park has a circular fountain, a storage shed, and a picnic shelter. A landscape company is covering the shaded area with mulch. How much mulch will they need? Round to the nearest square foot. Well, I'm going to start with the biggest figure I see, which is a rectangle. So I'm going to type REC. This is just scratch paper right now. I know that we're not going to put mulch under the picnic shelter, in the fountain, or in the storage shed. So we're going to have to subtract those areas. So I'm going to put subtract the picnic. So maybe I should just put shelter. That might do better. There you go. I'm going to subtract the fountain. And I'm going to subtract the storage shed. So I'm just going to put shed. All right. So what I'm going to do now is look and see if I can do this all together or not, because I may not be able to, because the rectangle and the shelter and the storage shed all use the same formula. So I'm going to leave this up here at the top, and I'm going to fill in the areas as I find them. So let's start with the rectangle, the large one, LW. So we have to tell our calculator the L and the W. So this is 46 by 25. So let's put those numbers in, 46 and 25. And that gives us an area of the whole thing, okay? That is 1,150. So I'm going to replace the recreation area right there with 1,150. Next, I'm going to look at the shelter because it would use the same exact formula, except that each of its sides is 14. So that means its length is 14 and its width is 14, which gives me an area of 196. So I'm going to replace the word shelter with 196. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the shed because, again, it's a rectangle, and then I'll go back to the fountain. So let's look at the shed. It is 6 by 10. So I'm going to put a 6 in and a 10 in, and that gives me an area of 60. So I'm going to take shed out and replace it with its area. So next, I need to find the area of the circular fountain. Again, please always check your formula sheet. I know that the area of a circle is pi r squared, but our calculator doesn't know what the r is, so let's see if we can figure that out. If you look at the diagram, it says from one side of the fountain all the way to the other is 6 feet. That's a diameter. So to make it a radius, we will divide by 2. So the area of my circular fountain is 28. So let's go ahead and replace the word fountain with 28. So that means the total area, or the area of the shaded portion here, is 866 feet squared. Okay, so again, you can do this if you just stay organized and take your time. And I like to use Desmos as my scratch paper. It just makes it easier for me, probably because my handwriting is so bad. All right, we'll stop there.